Hey, it's Brian Lake back with some fitness stuff, and today we're going to look at an article from NPR.org about cold weather training and whether it's really healthier or whether it's just a bunch of hooey. So, could exercising in frigid temperatures make us healthier? This is people taking an icy dip. I mean, that just looks heart-stoppingly cold there. When Scott Carney first saw the photo of a nearly naked man sitting comfortably on a glacier in the frigid cold, he was skeptical. The man, Wim Hof, a Dutch athlete who claims to control his body temperature in extreme cold through sheer force of will. Exercising in the cold, Hof argues, makes people healthier. I actually flew out there with the intention of debunking him as a fraud, said Carney. A Colorado-based journalist. Ooh, a random act of journalism. That's awesome. And senior fellow at Brady University's Schuster Institute for Investigative Journalism. But after learning Hof's methodology, a combination of meditation, breathing exercises, and immense, where's the comma, and immersion in ice-cold water, Carney became a believer. That's interesting. In a matter of a few days, I was meditating on the bank of a snowy river in Poland in ridiculous freezing winter and melting the snow around me with my body temperature. Ooh, that's interesting. I remember years ago, there was a thing with Tibetan monks where they were out in the really frigid air and they would put ice cold, wet blankets on them and towels and stuff, and these guys were just generating so much heat that it would actually dry them out quite quickly, and they weren't cold. Carney details that experience in his book, What Doesn't Kill Us, which was released in 2017 and recently came out in paperback. Carney points out that humans dealt with cold temperatures for much of their evolutionary history. Yeah, fake. And introducing a bit of chill into our daily life now, he says, it stimulates the muscles and tissues in a good way. There's actually been a lot of research in some of the muscle building magazines about hot, cold, especially after training muscles really hard. And it's kind of like, if you got to go hot and cold, like in a few minutes. It's very interesting, back and forth, like in a shower or something. And, our bodies need to be in constant variation. That keeps us healthy and fit. But how does that translate to the way most of us exercise? Is jogging in the cold this winter any better than hitting a treadmill in a warm gym? How about jumping into a frigid ocean for a swim? I used to run in the cold and then sometimes run inside. This would make me ill. This would just make my nose run while I was out in it. He asked me some leading what? This is what's tripping me up. Physiologist. Good God. To weigh in. Burning extra calories. Many of the purported benefits of cold hinge on brown fat, sometimes referred to as good fat. Long known to exist in human infants, brown fat burns calories and generates heat. And I think, if I remember correctly, it burns more than yellow fat. Yellow fat's in between the organs. That's the visceral. That's the bad stuff. This just looks unsightly, but yellow is the bad stuff. Dr. C. Ronald Kahn, a researcher at the Joslin Diabetes Center at Harvard Medical School, was among the first scientists to document the existence of brown fat in very small amounts in adults in the mid-2000s. People can increase their levels of brown fat by being in mildly cold environments, though the effect on the number of calories they burn were relatively small. The average person will burn an extra 100 to 200 calories a day when brown fat is activated, but if you go eat a muffin, forget it. Half a muffin, yeah. And that 100 to 200 calories figure is someone who's chilly all day long, he says. Experience cold for short periods of time. When you activate brown fat, it may stay active for a few hours, not permanently. Also warns that Hof's call for exposure to extreme cold could be overkill. But what it takes to activate brown fat is very mild degrees of cold. If I put you in a room 62 degrees Fahrenheit and you're dressed in a very light clothing, that's enough to do it. A second way that people can burn extra calories when they're cold is through shivering, but Kahn doesn't suggest that strategy either because shivering makes most of us miserable. Yeah, and also if you're shivering, you're started on your body has started in a bad cycle. It's the beginning of shivering before it starts shunting blood to the extremities to keep the core warm. It's a way to burn extra energy, but I don't think there's any data to say that it's good to lose weight because it's not comfortable. The whole point is healthier. It's not losing more weight. We've kind of veered off into something else here. Furthermore, people often warm up when they exercise, notes John Castellini, a research physiologist. Why do I keep thinking that's psi? I'm not seeing the H. With the U.S. Army Research Institute of Environmental Medicine, since you have to feel cold to burn those extra calories, Castellini says people who exercise outside might not actually be burning any more calories than those who are in a warm room. Exercise in the blood vessels, a side effect of exposure to extreme cold that Hof calls for is Vasoconstriction, when you're subjected to extreme cold, the muscles surrounding many of your blood vessels cause them to contract, sending more blood to your core where it can stay warm. There's actually a weightlifting technique where you actually do this. You strap, you make blood pool in your legs and stuff like that. It's very painful, but it's supposed to be very effective for building volume, mass, basically. It says that because human beings live in temperature controlled environments, all of that musculature is weak. Exercise muscles through poor cold exposure, he says, has a huge impact on circulation and arterial health. Gasley says theory is interesting but still untested. In terms of using cold as a way of training blood vessels, to my knowledge, there's no data to support the claim. That doesn't mean it's not true, it's just no data. Additionally, to my knowledge, that means I've ignored everything that I don't believe in. Dr. Aaron Cypes, a researcher at the Institute of Health, and worries that cold-induced vasoconstriction could have negative consequences for some people, including spikes in blood pressure. Oh my God, really? This is called BS. This is the modern witch doctor nonsense. We're looking for someone in our mild cold studies, and his blood pressure went really high. That's not a good thing. That's not necessarily bad, especially if it's short term. Training the immune system, one of Wim Hof's more startling claims that he could consciously control his immune system, drew attention of Matthijs Knox, a researcher at Redbud University Medical Center in the Netherlands. At first, we were a little reluctant. We started looking up the remarkable feats he had pulled off, so we decided to come up with a chance to prove his claim. To put Hof to the test, Cox and his team injected Hof with a solution containing pieces of E. coli bacteria. Since the infection didn't contain live bacteria, couldn't actually make Hof sick. But in most people, this bacteria compounds would fool the body into believing being attacked, triggering a temporary immune response that includes fever and inflammation. If Hof could indeed suppress his immune system, the injection would have no effect. Sure enough, Hof's body showed little reaction to the injection. He had virtually no symptoms, which is remarkable. There's actually a lot of evidence that this takes serious control. Followed up by repeating this test on a group of individuals whom Hof had trained. Just as with Hof, people in the study who had received the training showed little reaction to the injection, but untrained subjects experienced fevers, headaches, and chills. Mine never mattered. This is like a lot of mental stuff. The military does this for not breaking people. Why would we risk getting sick? Carney thinks the sort of suppression might benefit patients who are suffering from autoimmune disorders, such as forms of arthritis that are linked to the body's immune system essentially attacking itself. Knox is currently cautiously optimistic this could indeed someday be a train. This is one of the things that a lot of the metaphysics people that believe is that the mind can heal the body. And modern medicine really wants to dismiss the mind from everything. It's just amazing. We claim we want to use our minds and know and knowledge, but the mind controlling the body, that's just hocus pocus. We still yet test it, but it must have been okay. Just read all that. But which component of Hof's training contributed to the outcome? Was it cold exposure or the breathing? Yeah, you got to isolate this. Knox says he can't tell from his findings, but he is currently supervising an experiment to find out. He expects those results to be published within the next couple of years. Until then, the value of cold exposure as a treatment of autoimmune disorder remains an improvement if promising. The case for cold, the bottom line is there's little evidence to suggest that training in cold makes you healthier, or you can burn. Well, there is evidence that it makes you healthier, but burning more calories, no, not necessarily. The psychologists say did it again. The physiologists, the shot I talked to all agree on one thing. Simply hasn't been enough research to say one way or the other. That's good. That's a good way to put it. Cypus says he isn't ready to dismiss the potential benefits, but until he sees more compelling data, he's not likely to suggest it as a therapy. But again, the mind can put the body in an incredible state, especially for health and for healing. Most important thing is to get person exercise. There's no evidence adding a benefit to exercise. Okay. So there you go. Are there any comments? No, of course, it's NPR. We don't want comments. We don't want dissenting opinions. But that's pretty interesting. It's rather, it's somewhat unbiased. But there's some other things they could have pulled into this to experience it. But we'll see. All right. So what do you think? You think it's a bunch of hooey? You think it's good? Think it's bad? Let's discuss it. Bye.